So let's do a traditional worksheet here with selecting the correct indirect object pronoun. So the number one, it's gonna cause us to review that gustar is different. How we use gustar and verbs like gustar. The person receives the pleasure. So the indirect object in this particular sentence, and we're looking at number one, right? We're looking at number one, is Anna. Anna receives the pleasure, right? She receives the like from the direct object, which is el baloncesto. So the el baloncesto in this case is actually what's controlling the verb, gusta. It's the subject that controls the verb, and she's the recipient. So the indirect object pronoun that corresponds to Anna is what? You know it. It's what? Le. Number two. So we're going to do number two now, and let's identify the verb is escribir, right? So the recipient of what's written, una carta, is going to be mis tíos, and then we need to know what is the indirect object pronoun that corresponds to a mis tíos. We pick out of me, te, le, nos, os, or les, and we know it's going to be the plural one, les. Number three, right? Number three here is going to be a little different for us because we're reviewing again how gustar operates. So this one's tricky because as we've started the process of learning how to use indirect object pronouns, I've mainly focused on le and les. This particular activity, and from now on, we're going to use all of them, right? As you can see, me, te, le, nos, os, and les. We're going to use all of these. So in this case, ti is our object of a preposition. After a is the preposition. We're not going to say a tu, we're going to say a ti. But it lets us know that the indirect object is to the recipient, so therefore we're going to use the indirect object pronoun that corresponds to ti, which is going to be te. And notice the gustan is plural because papas fritas is plural. So the answer is going to be no te. So there we go. No te gustan a ti las papas fritas. Now, if you're alone at home and you're all by yourself, a good way to do is read these correctly and say it in your head. For example, number one, le gusta mucho el baloncesto a Ana. Yo les escribí una carta a mis tíos. No te gustan a ti las papas fritas? People who want to learn languages do this kind of stuff on their own, away from the classroom where you might be shy, but by yourself you might have this extrovert that you need to express. So go ahead and use the time by yourself while you're studying to practice speaking. Okay. Number four. Number four is an example of other verbs that work like gustar, interesar, fascinar, encantar. So to us, tennis interests us. We receive the interest, a nosotros, so we need the indirect object pronoun that corresponds to nosotros, which we know is a nos. Okay? So we got a nosotros, no nos interesa el tenis. We are not interested by tennis. A nosotros, no nos interesa el tenis. In the real world, you don't really have to say a nosotros. You say, no nos interesa el tenis. No nos interesa el tenis. No me interesa el tenis. ¿Te interesa el tenis? No. No nos interesa el tenis. ¿A ustedes les interesa el tenis? No, no nos interesa el tenis. Number five, el profesor blank da el examen a los estudiantes. So da is our verb. The direct object is el examen. The recipient of the examen is los estudiantes. So el profesor, you know the answer. You're thinking it right now as I'm ready to try to write it here with my stylus. El profesor le da el examen a los alumnos. El profesor le da el examen a los alumnos. Le da el examen a los alumnos. Número 6. So el hombre, our verb is vender, so what's being sold is the direct object. El carro. The man seller is selling the car, and the recipient, the person that's buying the car, the one that's purchasing the direct object, is mi padre. We need the corresponding indirect object pronoun, and that indirect object pronoun, right? Me, te, le, nos, os, les. What's our option? Our option is third person singular, a mi padre. So our answer is going to be el hombre le vende el carro a mi padre. El hombre le vende el carro a mi padre. Le vende el carro a mi padre. Número 7. Daniel. So what did Daniel do? He bought. Él compró. Daniel compró. What did he buy? He bought a direct object. What's the direct object he bought? He bought a gift. Un regalo. And who did he buy it for? Who's the indirect object? Who's the recipient of his gift? It's Cristina. So Cristina is singular, third person. So what is our indirect object pronoun? Our indirect object pronoun is either me, te, le, nos, os, o les. You got it. You already knew it. It's what? Daniel le compró. Le compró. Let's get it in there a little nicer looking. Le compró un regalo a Cristina. So what did Daniel do? Daniel le compró un regalo a Cristina. ¿A quién? A Cristina. ¿A quién? Who? ¿A quién? A Cristina. Daniel le compró un regalo a Cristina. Número 8. So here we go again, is what's again. So we know gustar is our verb, but gustar will not determine at all what the indirect object pronoun is. It's what determined that gustar is singular is it's el chocolate. Now what's going to determine our indirect object? Who received the pleasure? And the recipient of the pleasure is the girls, las muchachas. Las muchachas like the chocolate. Chocolate is pleasing to the girls. So we need the indirect object pronoun that corresponds to las muchachas. And that would be third person plural. So les gusta mucho el chocolate a las muchachas. Les gusta mucho el chocolate a las muchachas. Les gusta mucho el chocolate a las muchachas. ¿Qué les gusta? Les gusta mucho el chocolate. ¿A quiénes? A las muchachas. Les gusta mucho el chocolate a las muchachas. Número 9. So Sergio gave, right, dio the invitation, dio la invitación. To whom? Sergio dio la invitación. Sergio dio la invitación a ellas. So they are the ellas, the third person plural, the girls, right, are the indirect object. So the indirect object pronoun is Sergio les dio la invitación a ellas. ¿Quién les dio la invitación? Sergio. ¿A quiénes? A ellas. Sergio les dio la invitación a ellas. ¿Cuándo? Ayer. ¿Cuándo? El sábado pasado. ¿Cuándo? Hace 2 días. ¿A quiénes? Sergio les dio la invitación a ellas. If you understood everything I said, hey, you've learned a lot. Al final. Ahora, estamos aquí al final. Okay, tú. You give. Das. What do you give? El dinero. To whom? To the indirect object. The direct, because we know an indirect object receives a direct object. And the indirect object is Señor Pérez. And just a little reminder, right? Al, because it's a él. And when we're not talking directly to Señor Pérez or anyone with a title like doctor or señora, we're going to put the definite article in front of the el Señor Pérez, el hermano, whatever it is. If there's a title to the person, you put the direct object, you put a definite article in front of them if you're not talking directly to them. So here we go. Tú das el dinero al Señor Pérez. To make it sound like completely authentic, of course, we need our indirect object pronoun that corresponds to Señor Pérez. And tú le das el dinero al señor Pérez. Let's make it sound like a question. ¿Tú le das el dinero al señor Pérez? ¿Tú le das el dinero al señor Pérez? ¿Tú le das el dinero al señor Pérez? All right, so there it is. It's all done, right? It's been finished. And now you're going to do one just like it. So take your time because there's no margin for error. All of the questions are going to be on one page. It's going to be like a worksheet. So should I give you partial credit? Let me think about it. You'll find out. So anyway, I hope you paid attention to this because this can actually be kind of useful. So we're done with this. Let's get to work. Manos a la obra. Let's get to work. Manos a la obra.